Uganda People's Defense Forces Veteran Affairs Department was established in 2015 to provide support and care to UPDF veterans and their families.
What is its mission? The mission is to ensure that whoever has served this country, whoever has been involved in the combat activities, should settle in the community peacefully and productively. That's the vision. So the vision is to see a peaceful country whose the creation of that peace involved human beings or Ugandans, or can I put it the other way around, that the people who fought to bring peace in the country should benefit from the peace dividend. And the peace dividend comes from an investment. You invested your life, the dividend is what you are going to earn or to be paid as a resettlement. Once you get your money on your account, because it's an individual account, once money gets into your account, you are expected to manage your money because you have been prepared in how you should address or use this money to make your life better. You have this money paid to you by the Ministry of Veteran Affairs. But two, you also have the ongoing government programs, EMUGA, PDM, because these ones qualify for PDM. They are not above the category. So use this money, benefit from the government programs, and work on personal income. First and foremost, whoever did sacrifice his time, his life for the good of the country, we salute him or her. Two, that if you are a bona fide claimant, then you have the veterans officer in the zone or zone veterans officer. If that one has not been of help, information can be accessed from the chief administrative officer of your district. And then three, the Ministry of Veteran Affairs at Poste Building on Clement Hill in Kampala. All those levels cannot fail to address any of your questions that you have.
The department operates under the Ministry of Defense and Veteran Affairs in Mbuya, Kampala. The history of veteran affairs in Uganda dates back to the 1970s, when the National Resistance Army NRA was formed to fight against the government of Idi Amin.
Because many of those in the previous armies, for example, Uganda Army of the 60s, Uganda Army of Uganda Defense Forces, that was Uganda Army still, of UNLA, none was retired formally. They were disbanded because governments collapsed. So you had people who had served the country as soldiers in the 60s. They went in 71. Then there are those who served Uganda Army during Idi Amin's time. They simply phased away because of the collapse of the Idi Amin government. Then you had UNLA, Uganda National Liberation Army. But these guys it wasn't their fault that the government they served had not survived. They had been bad governments. So, and everywhere the president went, these cries were there about people having served their country, but were living in misery. So a decision was taken to pay ex gratia, a one-off package according to rank, and it was uniform, whether you served 20 years or 10, to the uniform fee. So that one-off called ex gratia was paid to those two categories I've mentioned. Uganda Army, UNLF. Now, there are groups that had been fighting the NRM government, right? From UPDA of Angelo Kero and the Odongola Tech to West Nile Bank Front. First of all, Uganda National Security Front 1 of General Moses Ali, Uganda National Security Front 2, West Nile Bank Front of late General Mose 1 and 2. Now, these also had to be resettled. So government took a decision to do a resettlement package for ex-combatants. And that's how the decision was reached to pay them, again, a figure, but according to rank. So UNRF 1 of General Moses was settled, paid, some absorbed in government. UPDA settled with the agreement signed in Peche 1988 with General Museveni, His Excellency General Museveni and Angelo Kero on behalf of the UPDA. And some individuals like the late Charles Alai came into government, the late Kano Ochola came into government. Those were also settled. So now, West Nile Bank Front came in, and the late Major General Muse was absorbed in the army with some of his combatants, and also some individuals were settled. So there was a batch that remained unsettled, and the government did process their money, and the tune of 5.1 billion shillings was released by government this financial year to pay ex-combatants of West Nile Bank Front 1. So the dummy check you saw in Koboko that the Honorable Oboth did hand over, he was representing General Salim Musaye, the architects of absorbing many of these groups, was a landmark showing the beginning of settling our turbulent history. So, a total of about 16,000 combatants is going to be settled, paid that money. Already the payments are going on. Some individuals even testified money had reached their accounts. Then, once this payment is done, which we are ending with this month, then processing of West Nile Bank Front 2 ex-combatants will start. Already verification is going on, because first of all the process involves identification, then verification whether these are the real claimants, and that process also will resume with the current financial year.
The NRA was later transformed into UPDF after the overthrow of Milton Obote's government in 1986. During the early years of UPDF, there were no specific programs or policies to support veterans. However, in 1995, the government established the Ex-Combatant Association to provide some assistance to retired soldiers and ex-combatants.
It was a decision taken by His Excellency the President to settle our history. Actually, his desire and the motive that pushed this was a peaceful resettlement of war-affected areas and the bus persons. As you know, West Nile from 1979 never settled. A whole population moved to DRC and South Sudan because of the displacement done by the massacre in Ombachi in 1979. The president urged the people to come back. Those who were not in rebellion came back, others continued with the rebellion. So in order to put an end to this instability, we had to resettle the guys who had been involved in ex-combatants, because they were living in a squalor. So it was a magnanimous decision by the president. Legally, if he was to follow, these guys should have been prosecuted for fighting government and what have you. But the law approach, the legal approach, does not settle conflicts. All right? So that's why a political approach was used.
This association was later transformed into Uganda Veterans Association. In recent years, the UPDF Veteran Affairs Department has worked to expand its services and improve the quality of care provided to veterans.
Yeah. What we have been, the process involved the following. One, the commanders. So those ones are known. Two, the LOC leadership, the local council. One, if Montesa Sera claims he was in West Nile Bank Front and comes from a certain village, that village knows he was a combatant, and you have compared, or you have information given to you by the commander. So the commander, then the LOC leadership, then the Gombola internal security officer in charge of that area. So it involves both the leadership of the ex-rebel group and then the leadership in the community. Well, of course, the issue, you are not dealing with 1 or 10 persons. So the issue is about verification. You have to painstakingly consider, yes, these are the documents given by the command of this former rebel group. Compare with the data on the village. Okay? Is it true this man was away for how long? Then you compare with what they have been told. So, it takes time. And that's why we have had a whole 2-3 years of doing this processing.
The NRM government was restoration of peace and security throughout the country and consolidating national unity through reconciliation and anti-sectarianism.
This includes the establishment of a Veterans Medical Center in Kampala, the development of a Veterans Entrepreneurship Program, and the implementation of a program to support the families of foreign soldiers.
Because produced part of the food we are eating now in UPDF. They grew a lot of maize in the other season. It was harvested. It has been bought by Ministry of Defense and milled into our maize mill. So now we have also saved on the money we are spending on buying food for our soldiers and they buy from our own veterans, plus our own chieftains of production. So they are earning, but number one. But two, most importantly, they have gainful employment. They have work they are doing that will improve their conditions and they will not allow them to think of any other thing like criminality because they are desperate. They are no longer desperate now. We actually have a department of psychosocial support under Ministry of Veterans Affairs. And there is a commissioner, Mike Mawonga, who is in charge of psychosocial support. One, you ensure the person has resettled, but two, you address now the psychological aspect of this individual to enable him or her transform into an ordinary civilian and settle in the community.
West Nile sub-region underwent immense suffering shortly after the fall of Idi Amin regime in 1979, with most of the rebels fled to exile, giving rise to insurgencies.
We decided to integrate former opposition forces into the National Army to support reconciliation and the restoration of internal security. It is in this context that our work to bring together the former fighting forces in West Nile needs to be understood. After the conflicts among the various fighting groups had been ended, government, in a gesture of goodwill, decided to offer peace dividends to them. This was especially necessary because an important aspect we had to consider when bringing about peace was to take some responsibility for the welfare of the former combatants.
That's the truth. West Nile Bank Front, Rescue, UNLF 1 and 2, West Nile Bank Front 1 and 2, they are from West Nile. Check, it's either in Madi, or in Koboko, or Yombe. That's where most of these groups were coming from. Actually, when I went to Yombe, I learned almost every rebel group mentioned, the starting point was Yombe. So yes, it's true. Why? There is a history to this. And like I told you, one they thought the government of the 70s was theirs, and that motivated some to recruit combatants for rebellion. Two, the mistreatment and mishandling in 1979 by the government came in after Idi Amin, displaced an entire population. Actually, the elections of 1980 did not take place in West Nile because there was nobody to vote. And all the 17 constituencies were declared unopposed for UPC at that time. So, if you're a government that wants durable peace, then you must deal with the causes that had led to rebellion. And one was the recognition that these are Ugandans, one. Two, they need to be brought into the mainstream of the rest of the country. Three, they need to benefit from government programs to enhance income generation for the homesteads and also participate in the national development.
Then, under the minister,
we came to realize that in areas of Yombe and Koboko, people were now had begun going to South Sudan. Then they call out and they say, we are rebels, we have so many guns, we want to surrender. And we saw through it. So the division commander of 4th Division, General Michael Kawango, and the political leadership have informed the population it won't be acceptable to use war as a business. Okay? So we have had a stop. Any other person who claims to be a rebel or having picked guns to fight government will be prosecuted according to the law. Magnanimity can never be forever. Yeah.
West Nile Bank Front was a rebel group under the command of Juma Oris, who took up arms against the government in 1994 but were defeated and granted amnesty. In December 2002, the government signed a peace deal with over 2,000 former soldiers of exiled former President Idi Amin following years of negotiation.
Is the fulfillment of the promises made by His Excellency the President and the Commander-in-Chief to those who had been involved in the combat, whether for the government or against the government. Combatants, we only followed ranks, not years of service. Because you are not serving, you are in rebellion. No. You are not serving, you are in rebellion. Of course, the communities believe we are fighting for them. That in itself gives you now reason to handle the matter politically rather than legally. But as a government, the farthest we could go was pay according to one's rank in the rebellion. The word service doesn't apply here.
The agreement was signed under the presidential amnesty accorded by the Ugandan government to reintegrate and support rebels who surrendered. First Deputy Prime Minister General Museveni, who was the former fighter, asked the president to consider compensation to the two groups.
And if you are a leader, you must cater for everybody that it deserves or needs. First of all, needs to be supported. But two, and this is something that some people don't want to hear, we had better learn to appreciate when an effort has been made to make something better. True, some of our NRA fighters received very little gratuity, not even pension. And eventually others qualified for pension. But that's why those former NRA combatants and supporters were catered for when we began Operation Wealth Creation. If you may recall, the main objective, the first main objective of OWC was to address the plight of NRA veterans and supporters of the NRA Bush War. And so that's why every district, every constituency in the former Rural Triangle had a veterans of an OWC officer whose main mission was to distribute seedlings and seeds. And as a consequence, if you recall, in 2018, the country experienced a bumper harvest of maize, courtesy of what the veterans had done, had been growing. Two, there has been a shift in the growth of coffee and the production of coffee and export of coffee. Again, courtesy of what had been done by OWC. You check every constituency in this country now, every district in this country, there is an OWC officer whose job was to make sure there's distribution of seedlings, there's a agricultural production in every homestead. And those who utilize these things correctly have had their welfare improve. But you see, then you have individuals who are ex-combatants of NRA, but who left informally. Either they deserted, actually mainly, that's the category. And those ones have been going on air, lamenting, have been neglected, but efforts have been made to look for every ex-NRA combatant. Where were you? Two, the purpose of putting these operational wealth creation officers at the district, at the constituency, is to ensure that he or she can be accessed by those who are rightfully entitled to this attention. 3 programs have been run on radios, on TV, even in the sub-counties. How come for you have not benefited in this? And I would like to use this chance of UBC to call upon any combatant, ex-combatant of NRA. You have issues, get to your veteran, to the OWC officer in the district or in the constituency, whoever is nearer to you. And therefore, he or she should be able to deliver your issues at the OW offices in Kamocha, and you are supported. 2, now we have collaboration, of course, of OWC and the Veterans Department. So all these efforts are intended to ensure that the conditions of those who sacrifice for the country are not left out. But honestly, if you, and some fear, by the way, because of that, the way they left, some fear coming out. Now, you can't blame government. We have been lenient enough not to look for the deserters. Ideally, that's where you'd be arrested and prosecuted for desertion. The veterans have a zonal veterans officer. Every zone has they are called the ZVOs, zonal veterans officers. They are.
Brigadier General Felix Kraiji called upon the people of West Nile to exercise reconciliation as a form of justice and enabling ex-combatants to contribute to their communities and promote social cohesion positively.
Categories of veterans include the political veterans, those who supported the war, all right? There are also NRA veterans, those who fought, who were enrolled in the National Resistance Army, now UPDF. Now, the veterans officer, the OW officer in these areas of former Rural Triangle cannot discriminate that from here I'm dealing with NRA or with UPDF. No. As long as you served in this uniform, you are RA or RO, the veteran officer, the Wealth Operation Exploration officer, is mandated to listen to you and lead you where you can be supported.
Commencement of payment to ex-combatant is a landmark milestone in ensuring pacification of the West Nile sub-region now that ex-combatants are resettled back to civilian life. Ex-combatants voluntarily surrendered their arms at Keri in Yumbe district, an event that marked a symbolic turning point to end of the insurgents in West Nile sub-region.